volunteer, please? Preferably someone who has cash. Anyone with cash wants to come up? Anyone with a hat wants to come up? Hat, cash. Yes, you come up. Guys, what's your name? Siva? Suha. Well, I'm going to call you Stanley. Okay. So Stanley has $20 right now. I have not $20. Who owns that $20 bill? Stanley. Okay. Now who owns this $20 bill? Still Stanley, right? So just possession is not the same as ownership, okay? Well, let's try to think this through. Can I get another volunteer? Another volunteer, someone from this side. Just, you're not okay? Anyone volunteer at all? Volunteer to come up?
I'll go.
You go, come up.
You work out?
No, I don't. You're gonna be the judge in our situation. What's your name?
Jonah.
Jonah?
Yeah.
We're going to call you Judge Judy. All rise please for Judge Judy. All right. Okay, Judge Judy has arrived, so please be seated. Thank you. Ready? All right, Judge Judy. So this is a $20 bill. Stanley originally had it. Now it's in my hands. Who owns this $20 bill?
Yeah.
Stanley, why is that?
Because it was hers to begin with.
It was hers to begin with.
Yeah.
But I have it now.
Okay.
Why? How come when I have this thing, when I hold it, how come I don't own it?
She earned it.
She earned it?
Yeah.
And then what about me? I'm a bum? I took it.
Yeah.
Okay? So I took this $20 bill. By taking this does not necessarily imply legal ownership. Okay? We'll be talking, let's make a distinction right now. In economics, when we talk about ownership on Mondays, ownership in economics means physical possession. On Wednesdays, ownership means legal ownership. Okay? Why, though, does the fact that she originally owned it, Stanley originally owned it, she earned it, however way you say it, why does that give her the right to claim legal ownership?
She worked for it.
She works for it?
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you another question.
Okay.
So she earned this $20 bill somehow, and now where did that right come from? Why do we even have the concept of rights and ownership? Does it come from God? No? Does it come from government?
Yeah. Partially.
Well, let's ask the audience. Let's ask the jury. Put your hands up if you're comfortable with the statement that you are an atheist or somehow you don't believe in an almighty single God. Okay. Those of you with your hands up, do you think that without God you have no morals? You guys are some amoral, nihilistic people? Okay, good. Put your hand up if you do believe in a God or gods of some sort. Do you guys think that you get your morals from the government? If the government said something like killing children was okay. Would that make it moral? No? Okay. So I think both of you guys are right. It's possible that we don't, well, I don't think we get our rights from government at all. Even if you don't believe in God, you still believe in morals. You could say they come from somewhere else. I'll be today arguing, and I hope Judge Judy here will rule in my favor, that our concepts of property, ethics, morals, they come from our interactions with each other. Okay? Thank you so much. Take this back. Round of applause, please. So, we're going to talk about the law today. What is the law? Who's got an idea for what the law is? Any ideas at all about what's the law? If you looked in a dictionary right now, what do you think the dictionary would say? Yes? Something about rules, okay. Any other, yes?
So that there's specifically rules enforced by society?
Rules enforced by society, okay. That's pretty good. Anyone else? Yes? You gotta speak up.
Something about consequences?
Something with consequences. Ooh, I like that a lot. So law is the enforcement of justice. Okay? Law is the enforcement of justice and how we come to discover law. So law is something you discover after there's a dispute. Okay? We did not always have laws, formal laws. We did always have disputes, and we did always have ways of resolving disputes. Who here watches the Discovery Channel or National Geographic with the animals and stuff? You see now the animals, when they have a dispute, typically when animals have a dispute, what do? Do they sit down and reason and have a third party adjudicate between them? What do animals do? They kill each other or bark at each other or something like that. Humans used to do that too. We used to be animals. We used to be less evolved. But sometimes we still do. But over time, we've slowly developed these institutions, okay? These frameworks, these processes in our lives that we're trying to get away from violence. Why? Because we discovered that peaceful cooperation is more productive for everyone. Leaves more people alive, leaves less stuff damaged in the process of violent coercion, battles and wars. So as we've gotten more used to the idea of peaceful trade and exchange, we've made less use of violence. Judges, okay, so we are in an English-speaking country. English-speaking countries are part of the common law system. Who's heard of common law? So, you know what common law is distinguished against usually? Who knows what's the distinction between common law and the other thing? So common law is usually distinguished with civil law, right? Or the civil code. So most continental European countries have a civil code. It came from Rome. We now also have criminal law, which is the government sets out some crimes, offenses. There's also public administrative law, and we've all these new developments, real estate law, all these things. But real law was discovered through a process of we call this spontaneous order. You and I have a dispute. You say that's your bag, I say that's mine. And then we find a third party, Judge Judy, who we both trust. And we go to Judge Judy and we say, this is my bag, you say that's your bag. It's an adversarial system. Why is it adversarial? It's because we are arguing over something that's scarce. Scarce means two people can't use it for different means at the same time. Does that make sense so far? Any questions so far? So we have an adversarial system because we are arguing over scarce resources. And we go to a third party who we chose voluntarily between ourselves. The history of the common law started in England, where we had traveling judges. Judges developed a reputation, and they actually went town to town, and they said, I'm a judge, I've got a reputation from the Shire across the river there. Who's got a dispute? I'll come settle it for you. I'm a fair judge, you can ask the other guys if you want to. A few hundred years go by, we get the rise of kings. The kings looked at this legal system and thought, I can make some money off of this. And so they said, all judges now belong to the state. And you have to now pay a fee to the state instead of the judge directly. And then the state will then pay wages to the judge. After that happened, the state started making rules of its own. And it called its rules laws. But these laws weren't developed in this way where you and I have disputes and you make a ruling one day and then you feel like maybe you made a mistake in that ruling. So you go to the next time someone has a similar dispute and then you rule the same way sort of but kind of different. And then you see what other judges are doing and then they're making the same sort of judgments. So this is what we mean by the law is discovered. Lawyers say that they practice law. It's because it's not some objectively known thing. It's you got to argue for your position, and you got to reason with your mind, and you got to make a case, and then you got to persuade the other person, the other human being, who, like you, wants to be nice, wants to be moral, wants to do the right thing, that you truly own this property by some common idea of ownership. And we discover this over time. The state, governments, perverted this process. They started passing what's called legislation. Legislation. The law does not equal legislation. In your day-to-day conversations, you may say, oh, it's against the law to turn right on a red light where it says no right to turn. But we didn't discover that law. That was legislation. Someone sat down and wrote down those rules. Let me make another point here. So I said state and government. Are state and government the same thing? Are they synonyms? Or do they mean different things? Who thinks they mean the same? Okay, are you just being nice to me? Who thinks they mean something different? Okay, let's call someone, you in the back. What's the difference between state and government?
Not really sure.
Okay, anyone, you have an idea, yes?
The state is all of the people that live in a specific nation. The government is the people that they decide are going to be in charge, or they take over some other way.
So what's the distinction between state and nation?
State and nation?
Yes.
I think nation might be the territory that they own
Territory that they own.
or control.
Anyone have a different idea? Okay. So the state is the, we'll use a common definition here, is the monopoly on violence in a given area. Barack Obama said this in a speech. You can search Obama, monopoly on violence. This is an idea that goes back to a man named Weber. Very old idea. But it gets more complicated. But the state is different than government. Who here lives in a condo building? Anyone live in a condo building at all? No? Who here is part of, who here has ever been part of a corporation of any kind? Corporation? So you know the corporation has a board of directors. Sometimes it's called the board of governors. And the directors make the rules for that corporation. Clubs make their own rules. That's analogous to legislation. Okay? So you can have a voluntary club where you guys just decide among each other what the rules should be voluntarily. The state, we know this through history, the state evolved through conquest, through violent wars and taking over people. And as it took over people, there's a nice story. There are two kinds of states, it's said. All states are bandits. That's the general idea. And then there's the roving bandit, right? The bandit who just goes from town to town, taking a little bit from every county or country or whatever. And then there is a stationary bandit. A bandit that sets up a shop, a town hall, and then they say, instead of me doing all the hard work of going to your houses individually, you guys just send me a check once a year, and we'll sort things out from there. You in the back said that the law has something to do with consequences. So the law isn't just what happens, what's right and wrong, right? So when I took her $20 bill, we have established precedents for what to do if I take some small amount of money. We call that petty theft. Or if someone took $20 from you, is it right to send a bomb to their house and their family? No. So the law is really about punishment. The law is about punishment. It's a theory, it's a practice of punishment. And it's also about proportionality. You can't send a missile to someone's house and kill their whole family because they took $20. But letting off a serial murderer with a slap on the wrist also doesn't rub us the right way, right? On the topic of criminal law, there's two concepts here. There's on justice. We'll cover this later in the course. There is restitution and retribution. Who knows the difference between restitution and retribution? Yes?
Isn't retribution the one that allows someone who's done wrong to kind of act in a way that will help, make up for what they've done wrong, whereas the other one just kind of punishes them?
Which one's which? You're on the right track? Which one's which?
I forget.
Okay. Yes?
I think retribution is the one where you can kind of redeem yourself through helping who you affected or something like that, whereas restitution is kind of you did that, so we're going to do something bad to you.
That's the opposite. So, retribution is punishment. So someone did something bad to me, so I want to get them back worse somehow. That's retribution. Restitution is making someone whole. Okay? You took $20 from me, I get my $20 back plus a proportional thing. But retribution is I get my $20 back plus whatever else I might have incurred in terms of fear or whatever. But then I'll also throw you in a cage for a couple years. So that's retribution. Common law has wavered between restitution and retribution. But the state has always come down on the side of retribution. Why? Because in the common law, we have the victim is the one who is bringing the case against the plaintiff, we call them, but the person who they deem has wronged them. So because of this, the victim can only get what they can convince the judge is just and fair. The state, on the other hand, when there's a criminal trial, if you're the defendant in a criminal trial, who are you arguing against? Are you arguing against the victim? Who knows who you're arguing against? Yes?
The people.
The people. But it's really the state. It's the prosecutor, owned or paid for by the government, who is representing the people, but they're really representing the state. Yes?
In Canada, it's the police.
The queen, sure. The regent. When it's not something that you've lost. It's not something that you have a vested interest in. How likely are you to seek a proportional punishment to recovering something that never belonged to you in the first place? You're not going to go proportional at all. So we shouldn't be surprised when the state, the punishment that it doles out, tends to be retributive instead of restitution. Who knows of the O.J. Simpson case? So O.J. Simpson, was he found guilty or not guilty of the murder of his ex-wife and friend? Not guilty by the state. There were 2 trials in that event. There was the criminal trial, where it was bungled by the state from start to finish, and then he was found not guilty because of many reasons. But then afterwards, there was a civil trial. And the civil trial, they followed common law procedures. You killed a person, now you owe the family some sort of compensation. And the family won the battle, but they never got their money. That was a different matter. But we have 2, you can call them parallel systems of justice in this society, where some of it is common law, people observing differences over time, discovering differences over time. And the other is the state's legislation, where they come up with different rules on the fly, and they try to enforce it fully in. Of course, sometimes the common law moves very slowly. You'll discover this in the readings. The common law moves very slowly. So sometimes it's necessary to make a quick change in how we settle matters. But this is best decided by the people who are going to be most impacted by this. So naturally, we have clubs that make changes to their regulations all the time. So condo boards in Toronto right now, the big deal is Airbnb rentals within the condo units. In a condo building, each little room is owned by a different person. So they develop a corporation, a condo corporation, all the different owners, and they say, hey, let's decide things collectively, and we'll decide on all these rules unanimously. And then once any decision that the corporation makes, we'll abide by. So big problem was the Airbnb situation, where the condo corporation and many of the people on the board said we have on our documents we say minimum 30 days rent, and some people are renting up for a weekend or a night, and it creates problems. So now how are we going to crack down? So that's an issue. They got to change the rules quickly. In the common law system, it might take several years because it happens one case at a time. Every case is unique and different. Here's another fun fact about the common law. You can export the common law. There were some cases in South America, I forget the country, but they had some natural resource issues, and they said, we don't have precedents of this happening in our country, so let's look at what Canada did. And then using Canada's judgments as a guideline, we'll do the same thing here, or something similar. In the European Civil Code, which is different for every country, but it's all based off of the Roman Civil Code, many people think that it was just a bunch of Roman guys sitting around in a room and they just kind of made it up. The Code of Hammurabi, similarly, it was just a list by Hammurabi. People just think, oh, he just sat down, he was so wise. He just off the top of his head just said, oh, here's just a list of things that should be legal and illegal. Those civil codes, too, were also discovered independently by judges over many centuries. And then someone eventually said, okay, I think we've got down the basic principles. Let's write those down for everyone to be aware of, so we don't have any excuses saying, oh, I didn't know. Right? It's very similar. It's just legislation, what the states do. the attempts at law by the states, that's when things get a little tricky. Any questions so far? Yes?
Is legislation only used in civil law, or is it completely separate?
Legislation is anything made by the states. Okay? Any other questions? Comments? Confusions? Who had a lab this morning? How did that go? Pretty good? Okay. You got that? Okay. Oh, so my email last night, was that clear? Or does anyone have any question about that email from last night? It was a very long email. Apologize for that. Yes?
I have a question with the email, but when it comes to the reading in the labs, is that material also going to be on the final, or is it just like necessary to know for discussion in the lab?
So the quizzes are based on all the readings that you do.
Okay.
All the quizzes based on all the readings. There's a huge question bank that covers the quizzes and the readings. The final, half of the final, is going to be multiple choice from the same question bank. So it could be from any time of the year, but it's going to be based off of the same readings and the textbook. Okay? Yes?
Is there a quiz for like this week?
So I'm going to open the quiz on Sunday, and you'll have a whole week to do it.
And is it for this week?
It's going to be on covering this week's material. So this is going to be the only quiz that's going to have our 1 week's material. After this, we'll do every 2 weeks. Okay? Yes?
So there are labs this week, right?
There are labs this week. They started this morning. Yes?
How specific are we going to readings?
Right, so I'm just looking to see if you got the gist of the paper. If you got the gist of the paper, if you got the exact opposite conclusion, that's a problem. Okay? So just trying to see if you got the gist of the readings. For the readings for this class, one of them is by Bastiat. It's already online. The document online is going to be like 100-something pages. You only have to read pages 1 through 29 of the actual document, not the preamble and stuff. It's also written by a French guy who lived and died in the 1800s. Sometimes he'll write M something. That's the translator's version of saying Mr. It's Monsieur, Mr. So his name, the guy he's referencing to, isn't M whatever. It's Mr. whatever. I was listening to the audiobook version on my drive up today, and they kept reading it as M. I was like, this is. Any other questions, comments? I'm going to make, does everybody have the course schedule on them? Because I'm going to make a slight edit. Everybody ready? Everybody ready? 3, 2, 1. So here's the edit. So this Hayek 2012 chapter 4, that's going to come up here. Okay? And then everything else is going to move up a week. On the Wednesday lectures. That's going to move up a week. That's going to move up a week. That's going to move up a week. Until this lecture. Week 12. Just for Wednesdays, yes.
online current?
Yes, the online version is current. It's called revised. Or it's just everything from below. No, so Fox doesn't move up, Asda doesn't move up. Fox stays the same. So Hayek is moving to Bastia, so Hayek can read today. Okay? Hayek is part of today's readings. And then everything else moves up to replace Hayek. So that leaves one empty slot the week before the exam review. And that is going to be on the business cycle. And I've got a PowerPoint presentation that I'm telling you right now is going to blow your minds. It's going to be the single greatest PowerPoint presentation you have ever seen. And I guarantee you it will be the greatest PowerPoint presentation you will ever see in your life. Till the day you die, you will remember this PowerPoint presentation. It's going to be so good. It's going to be so good you will think this was worth it. 5 minutes left. I'm going to make one last distinction. One last distinction between legal and illegal. Here's a word, plunder. Who knows what plunder means? If you've been plundered, what does that mean? You've been robbed. You've been burgled. You've been purloined. Okay? So we have illegal plunder, which is guy comes up to an alleyway and he says, "Give me your wallet." And he says, "Don't hurt me." What distinguishes between legal and illegal plunder? So what makes something illegal plunder is when you steal someone's stuff or you hurt them. You hurt them or you take their stuff without their permission. That is illegal plunder. Legal plunder, this is from the reading, so this is from the Bastia reading. Legal plunder is when legislation says it's okay to take from some to give to the other, to give to others. Okay? Can I get Judge Judy up here really quick? Or someone else who wants to be Judge Judy? Anyone else want to be Judge Judy? No? Okay, come up here real quick. So, here is crisp, almost $20 American bill. Okay? American $20. If Billy from last week here, if she takes it from me without my permission, is this illegal plunder?
Yes.
Yes. Judge Judy? Yes. What if Billy says that she's going to use my $20 and split it up with 20 other people? So now they'll all have $1 more than they did before. They'll all be better off, right? Does that make it justified, Judge Judy?
No.
Why is that? Why isn't it justified? You up there?
Legislation?
Well, that's not just because it's legislation. It goes back to the fact that she took my money just because she's going to split it up for more people. Doesn't change the fact that she took my money without my consent. Taking something without someone's consent is wrong, whether you do it for yourself or for the gain of other people. Does that make sense? There's some subtle nuances you can learn about in an ethics class, but generally speaking, taking from someone for against their will, what's rightfully theirs, is illegal. Now we have legal plunder. Legal plunder is legislation that justifies taking from some to giving to others. The readings will go into a big list of legal plunders, but a big issue today would be tariffs, right? Where it's taking from importers and giving them to exporters, or it's interesting how the person who pays the tax isn't always the same person who writes the check to the government. That's an idea we'll learn about later in the semester. But slavery was another case of legal plunder. The government says slavery was okay. It was okay to take people from one place, drag them out of their homes, bring them to somewhere else, and now they gotta work for you at the risk of death. That was legal plunder. It lasted for thousands of years. Thousands of years, we said slavery was okay. Kidnapping people, going to war and taking their wives and children as slaves. The law said, sorry, not the law, legislation said that was okay. In fact, in England, people argued against slavery. They said it was against the common law. Slavery was against the common law. And then they overturned the slavery legislation. That's what they got rid of slavery in England. Any questions on this? Thank you, Judge Judy. So, we went over the changes in the course schedule. Oh, some of you were in the wrong room today, right, for the Wednesday morning class, Wednesday morning lab. I changed also the syllabus. There was one of the rooms was wrong in the syllabus for the labs. I changed that as well. How many people didn't get to buy a copy of the textbook? Oh, a bunch of you. Did everybody else find it okay? Okay, so can I actually get a count actually? Don't if you didn't get the textbook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. Okay. All right. So someone else asked me a question last week. How much should I study for this class? And I said you should study as long as you need, but I'll give you a better guideline. For a normal class, you should be studying 1 hour at home for every hour you are in lecture. Let me also give you another rule of thumb. I personally prepare 1 hour for every lecture that I give you here. So if you're going to be studying and preparing for this class, you should be spending at least 2 hours. Okay? So at least 2 hours for this class. But it's up to you. Again, my office hours are at 11 a.m. on Mondays. If you have a question, come to me then. Other than that, I'll see you guys on Friday.